My name is Dan Brennan, iHeartMedia here in Mobile, and we've got three very different but very talented people to talk about leadership and building teams and building trust. And if you could each introduce yourself and say a little bit about yourself, even though my brother will start and he's very modest. Say something.
Good afternoon, everybody. Is it afternoon? Good afternoon. No, it's still morning. But good morning, everybody. My name is Jim Brennan, and I usually go as, introduce myself as Dan Brennan's brother. But my area of not expertise, but my area of interest is human performance. And I'm a professor, a college professor at Lehigh University in Pennsylvania. I also work with industries, consulting human performance, and for 12 years up until last year, I was with Villanova Basketball as their human performance consultant, and so that was a great laboratory to learn these dynamics, and I think they're all transferable to what you're looking for. And thank you for having me.
You're very welcome.
I'm very serious.
Brotherly love.
Brotherly love. Sandra?
Good morning. Sandra Richards, Managing Director and Global Head of Sports and Entertainment at Morgan Stanley. I also have another role that I'll add on to that is also Head of Segment Sales and Engagement. I think I have another job too, but I'll leave it at that. And then I'm also an author of a children's book called Rice and Rocks.
And we'll get into that as well. I think you all know Jesse Cole.
Yes, if you just joined us, I'm a circus clown, and I'm extremely shy and introverted. Thank you.
Bless his heart.
Thank you.
If you don't know his story, look up his story. His story is really inspiring and incredible and terribly odd. Let's start with you, Dr. Brennan. We know that emotions impact our performance. We knew growing up on a Rose Street in New Jersey with 5 other freckled siblings that emotions could get the best of us from time to time at 212 Mercer Street. Talk about emotions, performance, and I know you have a definition for sure of pressure and stress and what that is.
Well, I think it's important, first of all, to understand that emotions and reasoning, emotions and logic are not in separate compartments. It's not like a teeter-totter or a seesaw that if one goes up, the effectiveness of one goes up, the other goes down. I think that if I was to define emotion, it would be that when we become aware, it's a feeling, right? So when we become aware of the energy of our mental state. So emotional intelligence it starts with that depth of awareness. What's my mental state right now? And I think we can, when I'm working with people, I usually say, let's try to separate it between positive emotions and negative emotions, and how they work for you, and how you want to use that energy or to convert that energy. And when I try to separate it from pressure to stress, I like for us to think about being on the edge of the comfort zone, which you've heard about all morning. Is like nothing really good happens unless we're challenging ourselves or we're being challenged by our circumstances. And so we're hardwired to deal with pressure, to step up to it. That's what growth and development really is. It's what it requires. But stress, I like to parse that out and say stress is our own internal negative reaction to the pressure. So we're always trying to recognize stress early on, to have our own strategies for weakening it intentionally, and then get right back into the game. Get right back into, pressure is a good thing. Stress takes us usually sideways at best, and usually in the opposite direction.
Jesse, you bring a lot of emotion, obviously, to every day you're in that yellow tux, correct, in Savannah, Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So your emotion is high, your level of entertainment is high, your level of expectation for those around you must also be high. What's it like for folks to have to work with you in the cone of your tornado of a personality, and do you expect them all to fall in line and be the same?
No, good luck. All of our employees have left, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. We actually
They're
had-
hiring.
We're hiring. We have all millennials. When we started, we had a 24-year-old president, 3 22-year-olds working on an abandoned picnic table in a storage building. And we had zero turnover, voluntary turnover our first 3 years. We're crazy. We let our employees dictate their salary 2 years ago. We think everything on what is their experience and how do we make them feel. And I think from a standpoint of what we look at, it's how can you create memories, how can you create moments for your people? Pay attention to the things that matter most to them. And so you're asking how do they work with me? I mean, I show up with energy and show up to care, and I still need to get better every day at it. But how do you show up with the energy and the enthusiasm? We have our fans first way, which is our core beliefs, and it's always be caring, different, enthusiastic, fun, growing, and hungry. We pay our people to read because we want them to be growing and hungry. We just try to come in and think about them first, care for them as people first, and not as employees. And so, those things we do. We surprise them with trips. We surprise them with tickets to things. And I think they get over my craziness, my energy, because it's more about that they know that we care for us. And we have a few of our team members here today, and I'm proud that they're able to hopefully exemplify that and show that to our interns and our game day staff. So there's a lot of stories I could share, but that's who we are and that's what we stand for.
Yeah, speaking of energy, Jesse had an event last night that he was already booked on. They drove from Savannah overnight, and when his crew got a look at him later, he was running like 5 miles around Mobile before the event started, so that's energy right there. Sandra, aside from as you introduced yourself, you did mention that you're an author as well. Kind of your side hustle a little bit, but I know it's giving you a chance to express yourself in things that are important to you. The book is called Rice and Rocks. I understand it helps young children feel proud about their culture, and how do we now build environments where diversity is not only okay, where diversity can be celebrated and build a stronger team?
So first I have to say, I want to come visit. I love my job, but I want to come visit if you're wearing yellow every day and you're dictating salaries. I'll just come for a day and tell you what my salary should be.
For
that
one day. Perfect.
One day.
That'll work out well.
Just want to dictate.
By the way, anytime he gets a hot dog, it's mustard only. For obvious.
It's a yellow joke. I get it.
Sandra, back to you.
So I just want to first say that Rice and Rocks, and the title Rice and Rocks, which is kind of odd, so I explained to you, is actually something that my nephew called rice and beans. He called it Rice and Rocks. And my family is from Jamaica, so every Sunday my mother would make rice and peas. And one day I noticed that my nephew was picking the beans out of the rice before he ate his dinner, and I didn't know that this was a habit that he had, and I happened to pay attention really quickly. And I said, Giovanni, what are you doing? He was like, I don't like rice and rocks. And I was like, rocks? I was like, oh, the beans. And he was like, Grandma makes this every Sunday. And I said, well, that's a tradition in our family, and we should carry on the tradition. He was like, we're no longer in Jamaica, we're in America. I was like, yes, but there's some things that we need to be proud of. And he said, well, only Jamaicans eat rice and rocks. And I said, well, your little girlfriend next door, Emily, eats rice and rocks too. He said, that's not true.
Switch mics.
Thank you. He's like, that's not true. Thank you. And I said, well, and I called Emily over because I knew that was my little ticket to get him to believe something. And Emily's family was from Puerto Rico. And Emily, of course, long story short, loved rice and rocks. He couldn't believe it, so of course he started eating the rice and rocks. Mind you, he never tasted it before. So in the book, we go on a journey to talk about his friends coming over once Grandma to stop the tradition. And we go to Japan, Puerto Rico, and New Orleans, because that's where his friend's family is from, to understand that they have the same type of tradition based on rice and beans, rice and rocks, azuki beans, where they call it in Jamaica. And then when he gets back, he's so proud of his family and his traditions that he couldn't wait for his friends to get through the door and serve it. So part of that story was more so about celebrating our commonalities and sharing that you should not be ashamed of who you are and bringing yourself to the table, because there's going to be something in common. First of all, we're all people. So, I mean, you have that in common. So let's just start with the basic. And then we just figure out how can we identify and connect with people. But I think it's up to some of us as leaders who are leading teams, leading organizations, to make that individual commitment to show that diversity is important, inclusion is important, and how do we shepherd that. So if you take what Vince Lombardi said, paraphrasing his quote, talking about individual commitment to making a group effort, well, you will win in corporate, you will win as a citizen, you'll win in life, but it takes your individual commitment. So I take that commitment not only personally with my family and my nieces and nephews, but I take it at work.
That's awesome. Awesome. So with that in mind, and we can start with you, Sandra, how do we develop true emotional connections to develop the strongest team we can have? I mean, true emotional connections where everyone feels a big part of things and therefore you have the success.
I know members of my team are here, and I think they can tell you with great passion that when we have our team meetings, we never get through the team meeting. We're always talking about something where I can connect all of them on the team. As the team gets larger, of course, you bring different personalities, different egos, either whether they're present or suppressed, or personalities, agendas, all of that stuff. So to try to get them all to connect, work together, there's a lot of storytelling. And I don't think I ever get through an agenda, but we get our work done because everybody gets to tell their story or something, especially if I feel like there's tension or that we're off a little bit on something. Again, it's on me to sense that and be aware and in tune to what's going on. Or even if it's just the environment of something going on company-wide that might be affecting us while we're at the table. And so when I think about how do we connect, sometimes it's just pure storytelling. I might do a little bit too much, but I find it kind of breaks down whatever anyone's feeling, and they're able to put it on the table, happy, sad, indifferent, and allowing everybody to have a voice at the table is also very important.
Yeah, that they're all important.
Yes.
Jesse, you told the story of one of your team members taking an umbrella and walking an elderly man from Savannah all the way to Augusta, I believe. But so it went a little bit sideways, but at the same time, your team is happy to perform for you. How do you tap into them emotionally? Or is it just the choice of the people? Or again, how does emotion and connectivity tap into and become the story that is your success?
Yeah, well, I'm not as smart as this group here. We just try to keep it very simple. And for us, we use an acronym, CARE. And it's communicate the right things at the right time to the right people. And what that ends up being is simply saying fans first over and over again. What does it look like? What is fans first? That's how we make every decision. And as I shared earlier, our biggest fans are our people. So what does that look like when they first start their job? We map the experience. When they come in, we have a huge celebration for them. We have their favorite food, their favorite drinks. We know all that
coming to
stuff
work
that
for him.
What's that?
Celebration? I want celebrations too.
Weather's nice in
But
Savannah.
I also throw bananas at them too. It gets a little crazy.
I like bananas. Sorry.
Where was I?
Sorry.
No,
None of us know.
We're just talking about, CARE. So in the second one, the A for the CARE acronym, and A is accountability. And I believe accountability is the sincerest form of love. And if you really love people, you love your team, you're going to hold them accountable. We have a young man who's part of our team here, Barry, and I'll never forget about 2 months ago, he said, Jesse, when a fan came into our ballpark, you were all talking excited, but your body language was turned away from him. And he came up to me and said, that's not fans first. He's 24 years old. If he's holding me accountable, as us leaders here, how often do we go to our people and say, what can I do better? I constantly say, hey, what'd you notice today? What can I do better? I'll even ask him today, what on stage? What did I not share about us properly? When you do it as a leader, you're going to get your people to do that back to you. It's accountability. The R is for us is recognition. There's a huge void right now in recognition. And Sean Aker, author of Happiness Advantage and Big Potential, he went on a cruise line. He got asked to go on a cruise line and talk to the people, the crew, and find out what makes them happy. And he convinced the cruise line to invite him and his whole family and friends to go on the cruise line, probably what Sandra would do. And he went on the cruise line and he talked to the entire crew. And the crew went all over the world, the most beautiful islands, the most beautiful resorts. They had the most epic parties. And 90% of them said the thing that mattered the most was when they got direct recognition from their supervisor. So when you think about that, how often are you recognizing your people? With a young man, Jonathan, our director of operations, he's worked so hard to feed 4,000 people every night. And I remember, I said, Jonathan, what was your best moment this past season? He goes, after we held that huge country concert, you came up to me, put your hand on my shoulder and said, I'm proud of you. You killed it tonight. That simple gesture was his best moment. So how often are we recognizing people? And for the people that here aren't leaders, if you're just an employee, how much are you doing peer recognition? We write thank you letters to our team constantly. If you look at our staff's offices, there's letters from everybody that we write on a regular basis. And then the final one, E, is empowerment. You have to be able to let your people fail and try things. And we've failed at a lot of things. World's largest tickets that were about this size, the fans hated them, all right? What were they supposed to do with these tickets? But we give people the opportunity to fail, because once you fail, you discover, and we call it failure discovery. So that's kind of an acronym we work with, and I'll tell you, when you communicate the right things, hold your people accountable, recognize them, and empower them, it's unbelievable what you create.
Well, I love you, Jesse, but you've just won for longest answer. Dr. Jim, have you got the working microphone now?
Yes.
Okay. When we talk about emotion, player accountability, like at Villanova, you had a chance to be in the inner workings of teams that were very successful. What was the makeup? How did that happen?
Well, I like the way where this conversation's going, because well, I started out talking about ourselves under pressure, but that's one of the big tension points. But the other one is self and other. And if you saw that trailer a couple of minutes ago, where I was on there with Practical You, and I mentioned a station, WIIFM, is a fictional radio station that we all listen to, and it stands for What's in It for Me. And that can be a negative or that can be a positive. The fact is that our conscious awareness is one of its strongest aspects is centrality. It comes from each of us. So we are always listening to what's in it for me. I like to talk to audiences who are not just focused on me, but they're really tuning into what are your aspirations, what insight might you be ready to take away, what are your goals, what are your challenges, and when Sandra was talking about the diversity of each culture and how they deal with self and other, right, and honoring self and other, at Villanova, what we tried to do was not create a false binary, we call it. Is it about you or is it about this team? Because it's always going to be about you anyway. And our speakers before have mentioned how empowering it is to give yourself over to a group that's larger than you or a purpose that's larger than you. So it's true about us that we are unique, but it's also true, so we're designed, each of us, like no one, ultimately like no one who ever lived before. It's also true that we're interpersonal beings. So we really, if we're seeing it accurately, seeing reality accurately, we really are all in this together. And the way that we develop our uniqueness is, first of all, learning more about yourself, because you need to know. Like when I just met Sandra 10 minutes ago, I think that I would just start out with a generality that still waters run deep. Jesse, I met early this morning, and I'm thinking, whoa, I got to be really careful about my own energy, because
About where your wallet is.
but Jesse's energy is so field sensitive that he's going to be out there. For him to be at his best, he's trying to get you at your best. He's amping it up. And mine, if you look at my face, when I see my face on a screen, I think, oh, I'm really like sort of hiding out, and I'm not as field sensitive. I'm more like, my mind is my laboratory. So my countenance is one to create a little bit more space. Like don't just rush in. It was maybe one at a time or small groups, but because I'm thinking about what's percolating inside, and when I'm ready to share it, then you'll hear it. But if it's not ready for public consumption, Jesse and I were talking about thinking out loud, how you love to think and act and create it through more kinetically and more interpersonally. So So at Villanova, I'll just try to give you a quick conclusion to this.
You're about to break Jesse's
It's
record.
too late for that, right? But at Villanova, we tried to know as much as we could through personality tests and other surveys and just getting to know people, who they are as individuals, and value that. And when you do that, it's not an indulgence that makes somebody more self-centered or selfish. It's a need that once it begins to be fulfilled, takes the selfishness out of them, and they're ready to be part of a group. And if they like who they are in that group, then and they think, I'm growing. Being in this group's the best thing for me. That's the key. So that's what we try to do, and I think pretty successfully at Villanova.
Yeah, the success is, documented. Sandra, if there's one trait that you could credit for taking you to the top of your profession and a diverse profession, professions, what would that be? If there's a personal trait of yours that probably has been kind of the North Star of your rise.
I would say humility. That no matter how, the perceived ladder that you climb, that there's still some level of humbleness around you and a level of humility. I will tell you that you will get a lesson in humility every day if you spend time with those children that I go and do book readings to. They ask you anything. I mean, they just say any and everything, or do every and anything. But I learn a lot from them, and I think that, putting the book out has given me so much more, especially when I get to spend the time with the kids, and even just learning about their circumstances and situations depending on what school I'm going in to read. And a quick story about that, so I guess I'm gonna get the next star for longest story.
Records are meant to be broken.
I went into Brooklyn, New York, and did a reading with this organization called Behind the Book. And they bring in authors so that the children can get to meet authors or illustrators that are behind the book. And I noticed this young man when I walked in and told the story. He was kind of listening to me, but he wasn't really attentive or in terms of engaging like the other students were. So when it's time to come to get their book signed individually, he comes up and I said, "What's your name?" He was like, "Keith." And I said, "Okay, Keith," and I'm starting to write his name. Now, mind you, I'm in this very, very low chair, and he's 8 years old. And I said, "Okay, Keith," and I spelled the name. I was like, making sure I spelled it right. And he said, "While you at it, could you put your phone number in there?" So I looked, and the teacher was coming over like to stop him, and I told her, like, "Hold on, I can handle him, hold on." And I said, "No, I'm not giving you my phone number." He said, "Why not?" I said, "It's inappropriate for me to give you my number." I said, "Why do you want my number?" "Well, I want to keep up with what you're doing." I said, "Okay, I'm gonna give you my website." He was like, "It got your phone number in on there?" I said, in my mind, I was like, "We need to hire."
Keith was creeping, man.
Yeah, but he was persistent, and I said, "We need to hire him as a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley later on in the future, put him in our little pipeline." But then when I was leaving, I said to the students, "Bye," and he was like, "Bye, beautiful." And I said, "Okay." But when I left out, the teacher said to me, "I'm glad you stopped me," because he actually was having some issues at home and he hadn't been talking. And that was the first time that he actually was engaged, excited. And so even the difference that you're making, not even knowing what kind of difference that you're making, and again, being humble, because I wanted to make sure that I could have been like anybody else, like, "No, don't talk to me, blah, blah, blah," and like did whatever. But it was the humbling part, and that kept me humble in knowing that what his story was, what he was going through. And you never know what someone's journey is, and to brush it off, or they're trying to connect with you, you don't know what they're going to get from you, and you don't know what you're going to get from them. So of course I went home and I told my boyfriend, I said, "Look, an 8-year-old boy hit on me today. And I'm gonna need you to step up your game. So when I leave the house, I need you to be like, 'Bye, beautiful.' Or when I get home, you can say something else." Of course, he didn't pay attention to me, but whatever.
Well, when you return to Mobile in 15 years with your husband, Keith, we're going to be so excited to actually meet him. That's going to be a lot of fun. Jesse, when you are trying to recruit, boy, I bet you could go into a third grade class and find kids that are eventually going to work for you for the bananas, because if kids like Keith can stand out. But what's the trait you're looking for a team member for your organization?
It goes with our values. So our hiring process, we ask for a video cover letter, fans' first essay on how they fit our core beliefs, and we ask for a future resume. So we don't necessarily care what they've done in the past. We want to know what they plan to do in the future. So based on that, we want to know, are they growing? Are they hungry? If they say they're going to have the same position for the next 5 or 6 years, they're not showing that growing and hungry. So we do a long hiring process. We have everyone on our staff interview people. One of our last employees that joined us wrote a thank you letter to every single person on our staff. It was 15 full-time staff. That showed that she cared. She went through the whole process, did a video, got out of her comfort zone. So we're very deliberate, but we're still learning. The reality is we had our first turnover recently since we started, and we've realized that we've been most successful bringing in interns that learn our culture, that spent 3 months with us, that know what they stand for, they know what we stand for. As Simon Sinek says, if you bring in people that believe what you believe, and that's how you really build a strong company. So we're learning, and we're trying things every day. I think that's what we do. We're trying new experiments to see how we get better people.
It's about culture, though.
100%.
Creating that culture and maintaining that culture. Dr. Jim, finally for you, if you were building a team around you as a recruiter, say, though that was not your role at Villanova basketball, but as you watched kids come in, potentially going to be part of the program or potentially not, what were the traits that would catch your attention that you would think this kid's going to be not only a good fit, he's going to help us win beyond basketball skill?
Well, it's a loaded question, but I think when we think about the human psychology and having two main systems, one is safety and security, and the other is growth and development. They don't occur mutually exclusively, but they interoperate. But only one can be in charge at any time. So what we're looking for are the kids that are really in growth mindset. Like they are much more motivated by being on the edge of the comfort zone, by being challenged, and you'll be more resilient, I think, if you're not driven into the safety security mode every time something goes wrong. So because we plan to really test them. So you're looking for that growth mode. Some of our speakers spoke earlier about that win-lose mentality, that you're just crazy about winning and you really don't like losing. As soon as we would put a score up on the scoreboard, whether it was in practice, whatever we were doing, and they see they see that there's a rating there, and they're just after each other. And now that can be a bad thing, but if that's the way you're hardwired, that you have that kind of motor, like I really get after it. And watching Coach Gruden when he was talking about, I love to coach, his face started to scrunch. Like, I love to coach. I love to do that. I love to prepare. I love to send people, off who don't love that. You could see that passion, and so so you're looking for that as well. I lost the last thought of it, but
Well, that's a shame because you're such an intelligent man.
well, yeah, we're trying to
What
keep
the
it
hell
trying to keep
happened?
it short. So I'm sure it was an intelligent thought. So I apologize, but I'll turn it over to Sandra for the next question.
What that would be the last question, really, is, Sandra, a trait that you value the most in the people you either recruit or work with or for, or they work for you.
Again, I think I can't emphasize enough humility and also being open-minded, because we work in a place where we work, of course, with people, and we're in a relationship business, and we come across so many people with so many different ideas, opinions, and then the role that we're in is to support our financial advisors in helping to grow their practice, in engaging with new clients, their current clients, and how do we stand out and make ourselves different in a competitive marketplace. So you have to be open-minded to dealing with different personalities and talking with different people, and also just being able to put yourself in a role reversal. There are a number of times when people will come to me about mentorship or advice, and not being so high level that I forget that I once sat in that seat. I once sat in that cubicle. I once sat in that VP role. And then also to recognize the role that you sit in and what that portrays to other people, because at Morgan Stanley, I'm one of very few African-American managing directors, and what does that mean for the next generation coming up? Is that I can be humble and open-minded to have that discussion and conversation with them, and even just people that work directly with me, is that my door stays open, and that the fact that other people open the door for me, it is my responsibility to keep the door open for other people, and also tell them that that door, for you, if I'm going to pour into you, you're going to have to do that for somebody else. So that this thing keeps coming and going and going, and the cycle continues.
Have you enjoyed our panel? Give me a hand if you would.
Dan, can I have a mulligan?
I'm sorry?
Well, I'm your older brother. Can you give me a mulligan? Because
A mulligan?
Listening to Sandra, I remembered the point,
Oh, please,
the last point
sure.
that I was going to make.
Sure, I said to the guy that beat me up 12 times a day growing up. Yeah, it's all yours, bro.
So the point is when you have people that are really competitive, that can get out of hand, right? So that, and winning and losing is something that they're hardwired to just love the battle. But that's not the objective. That's the incentive. So the objective for us was, as Sandra was saying, to keep growing, to keep getting better. Are we making ourselves a better team? Are we making each other better individuals through this whole journey? And so the winning and losing, that's going to be the kind of the carrot that you hang out there, that as soon as you put somebody in a competitive environment, they're really going to work hard at what you're asking them to do. But even when we lose, we can still be growing. When we win, we still have to ask the question, are we growing and improving? So splitting that out, making one the incentive, since that's what we naturally love to do, but that incentive is just to get you going to grow toward the objective, which is to be a better person, to be a better team, to just reach higher levels of your potentiality. How was that? Was that okay?
That was a lot better, yeah.
Okay. That was
First time around, I was like, oh, what's going on here? Listen, we just want to say thank you again to Dr. Jim Brennan, Sandra Richards, the one and only Jesse Cole, and golf. Hang around, got more great stuff on the way, y'all.